Like when I saw Milk just then, it was the look of like Corey's supposed to say something, and Corey didn't know what to say, so I just waited. And this is the show, though. This is the Digipod Pokécast show. We have a special guest host this time around. Let's just, right out the gate, let's just get right into it. A lot of times shows have special guests, which I find demeaning. The very concept, you're going to have them on and they're going to be lesser than you. By default, they're going to be lesser than the host. No, 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 no. We eschew that norm, and instead we have a guest host. That's
Yes.
what's going to happen. Buddy is not a guest; he is a guest host, and so this is your show as well, buddy. That's all that to say. This is your show with us. So, however you want to help guide this journey, we're all along for the ride together. And the topic at hand today, here I go, just hosting. Buddy, what's the topic? What are we doing on the show?
We're talking Pokemans.
Yeah.
Sure.
I asked
More
for
specifically, what we're doing is we're actually kind of delving into revisiting past media, like the ways that we would have gone about exploring these worlds when we were kids. Because Milk mentioned that you have been replaying. Is it Red version or what?
I have recently replayed. I'm trying to replay through all of them. So I did do a replay of the old Red on a Game Boy.
Oh.
It was tedious and it was amazing.
Yeah.
But yeah, it did bring me back to my childhood, and yeah, I think I've gotten through almost all of them. There's a couple of the remakes that I haven't officially finished, just because I liked the original better, or Pokemon have multiple games out that are really good at one time, so it's hard to focus on remakes of games I've already played. So but yeah, I love going through the old games.
So,
Well, let's start kind of at the beginning. Oh, I'm sorry, Milk. You might have been going on the same path here.
yeah, I think so. Just because at the beginning, like, I'm surprised. Why actually all the way onto a Game Boy? Like, when you said you played through the first ones, I assumed you meant the Rencho console on Switch or just like a ROM, but you actually got out, like, undusted a classic Game Boy, not even in advance.
No, so in the year of our Lord 2020, there was a little bit of a shutdown of the world, and instead of like shaving my head or having another manic episode, I decided to buy just a bunch of old retro game systems that I either didn't have as a kid or that I had as a kid and wanted to have again. So I bought myself a Dreamcast, a Nintendo 64, an original Game Boy, a Game Boy Color in the color I always wanted, the see-through one.
The
And
atomic
then-
purple.
Yeah, and then forget which other one I got, but my favorite ones were those ones, and those are the ones I play the most.
So
That I feel like a lot of people had that experience in the pandemic of like going immediately to old games. Like that was such a comfort for Jacqueline and I. We were buying like old PlayStation 2 games and stuff that like we hadn't really played when we were kids, or like in some cases it was like I haven't played this particular. It was such a warm blanket of nostalgia. Yeah.
Absolutely. That was like my go-to. Anytime it was like, oh, the world, another thing's shutting down. Okay. Oh, Pokemon. So yeah, it became really fun for me, and getting to play like Nintendo 64 games that I didn't have as a kid or just didn't play because I wasn't interested as a kid, but like get to play them now, and Dreamcast games that I used to love as a kid.
I've never played a Dreamcast.
no.
It always was this like unattainable thing that like I didn't know anyone who had one, except my older brother who kept one at his grandma's house. So I never played that. And it seemed mysterious to me because there weren't a lot of games, or at least that was my perception of it, because it didn't seem like there were a ton of commercials. for
No.
Dreamcast games. So it was like this dark horse.
Yeah.
What
It, it,
what
it
do you
didn't.
guys think of the Dreamcast in general? Like what's your take on that?
I I thought it's very much for me like ahead of its time with a lot of the features and stuff and just like how the controller played. For me when I was a kid, I didn't like get a lot of video games, and I just remember for whatever reason there was like a sale on the Dreamcast, probably because they weren't selling,
Yeah.
and my grandparents got me one, and that was like my gaming system, and I had a racing game for it, and then I had a wrestling game for it, and I was obsessed with that wrestling game, Royal Rumble, and I would just play it over and over again. And so like the system became like, to me it was like, oh, this is the greatest thing. And then when all the other systems came out and there was no like follow up to the Sega or no new games kept coming out, I stopped playing it. And then as an adult, I was like, oh, I'm going to get one again because I remember how fun it was. Now playing it as an adult, I can realize that it's definitely from an era, and it's definitely the lesser of the Nintendo 64 and at that point, I believe, our PlayStation 1. It is definitely lesser, but in my child brain, I was like, this is the greatest console. Everyone's sleeping on this.
They don't know.
Yeah.
There's definitely a lot more wonder as a child when playing through those than as an adult. Now you can just be cynical, even if you're having fun. Just be like, "Wow, this was made poorly." Which, unfortunately, I'm a victim of like when it comes to playing the newer Pokemon games. I'll be like, "Oh, I'm having so much fun," but I'm still like, "Wow, they really couldn't get this thing right."
Oh, even in the new games, new or old games, I'm just like, I'm nitpicky. I've always been nitpicky in my Pokemon games, but I'm also like, I get exported to being like a child again every time a new one comes out and I start playing it.
Yeah.
It's an absolutely wonderful thing. I love those games.
So, how's it been going back to that first one though? So, what one is it? Is it red, blue, green? Which one did you revisit?
I went back to red because that was the one I originally had as a kid.
Okay.
And yeah, green is the Japanese exclusive, right?
Yeah, I think it was red and
blue.
green. Red and green in Japan, and then red and blue in America, I believe.
Okay, yeah, yeah. So I got red, and that's what I had as a kid too. And it's like a very paint by the numbers game,
Yes.
and it's very tedious, and there's not many features beyond just like catching Pokemon and fighting, and there's not much to it, but as a kid that's all I needed. Like, to me,
Yeah.
that was more in depth than any Zelda or any other game I could find as a kid, because I was like, this is great. I get to build my team. I get to pick, it was wonderful.
That was
I think the dialogue is pretty entertaining for a kid at that age. I think it's a little more than just meat and potatoes. Like that's like one thing I'll give like the dialogue to that early game. Like it had some like humorous parts. I can't even think of examples right now, but like I remember enjoying like just how people talked in that game as a kid.
Interactions with like certain characters in the tower with the ghosts, that one,
Yeah.
that part's really fun, and anything with Team Rocket is very nostalgic. But yeah, it is a very dialogue heavy game for like little kids and stuff, but then
Yeah.
all of them do. Some of them get even more dialogue heavy as the games progress.
I feel like not a lot of like portable games back then were very narrative driven. You know, you had like Mario, Wario, and like puzzle games. I never got a lot of games on my like Game Boy Color, which is what I started with, but I don't remember a lot in the vein of like RPGs with stories. And then here's this one that like even compared to console games, you get to build your team like out of 150, and you're going against the Mafia, which is like, you know, more grounded than like an evil dude with a rock, you know. So they definitely had like a impression. But yeah, going back it seems hard. I recently talked about wanting to play like the originals, and I couldn't imagine going back to them, like because there's remakes. There's three
Yes.
versions of the original game now, and so I don't know. Just like, did you get frustrated at the like limitations of that old game, or did you take advantage of how janky Toxic was in those first games?
Oh yes, oh yes, and the fact, yes, a lot of the fact that if you have a Kadabra or like anything in that line, you're just overpowered. It's a very easy game too, especially just knowing what I know, 30 years later or whatever almost. But I think especially once I got to finally playing Fire Red, that's when I realized that I was like, oh man, those games are very, like, just so dated and so of their time. Because even Fire Red, that's at this point, I want to say almost 10, I mean, it's over 10, it's got to be almost 15 years now.
I think it's right
Old.
around 15. Yeah.
Yeah, that game is even light years ahead of the originals. And then the Let's Go games are really, really fun. And it definitely takes it back to like being a kid and just having fun with Pokemon. And that game's really good too. But I think Fire Red is my favorite version of the originals.
I love the Let's Go games because we're all adults, in here, the age of the Nintendo Switch. But like that game actually made me feel more like a kid than any of the other Pokemon games that have come out, just because for one, it made you actually like throw the ball,
Yeah.
and it focused less on some of the like newer updates of a Pokemon game that are like good and immersive, and just really like boiled it down. It was definitely made for a younger audience, but unlike a lot of games like that, I feel like it just kind of worked as like a simplification. I don't know. Are there other games you all have played that have ever like made you feel young again just because of how stripped down they are, if that makes sense? While you
feel young again.
Yeah. Also, chat is really reminiscing in classic football games.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. So
on like old systems, like playing Madden.
Yeah. Robert Bass asks about Mattel football. So yeah. Man, if only they had a Pokemon football game, I might have become a different person.
They have a lot of Pokemon offshoot games. That's another thing that in buying nostalgic games that I found was like I never played the Rangers series until recently. I never played the Snap games until recently. Like those never were in my life until recently, and now I'm obsessed with like all of them. Pokemon Puzzles on the Switch version of the Game Boy Advance or the Game Boy Color, and it's one of my favorites as well.
Shidozi says Wee Barbie, I guess, is one of those youthful, inspiring games.
Oh, I can imagine. I feel like there is definitely an appeal to those sort of. What I'm assuming this game is probably similar to like a dress-up game. Jacqueline has talked about how like she would really just like relax with those. Like just they're just such a nice way to just kind of zone out. You're just like, I'm gonna make something look pretty, So and that sounds pretty appealing.
The Lego games. If you've played any of the Lego versions of games, they're all really, really fun. I love the Lego Star Wars games, the Lego Jurassic Park ones. Like all the Lego games are really, really fun and bring me back to being a little kid too.
I'm just a general believer that like I'm so bad at going back to old media and just playing it and it's jank like quality of life stuff. But I love remakes, and I know a lot of people will complain about remakes. The Let's Go, the Let's Go Pikachu and Eevee got so much hate, and I'm like, why? This is so fun. It's different enough. I enjoyed the motion control aspect of it. It made each Pokemon feel different to actually catch it, which, like, let's face it, it's like, 20 years since you originally played some of them. And you're catching only the original 150, which you have seen sprout up in, like, what, at that point, 7 generations of games. It was nice to, like, be creeped out by Mr. Mime and figure out how to throw the Pokeball at him to, like, really get him. So
It was very fun. Like, that game is a completely, it's the same game, but it's very different, and it wasn't made necessarily, like, I hate to say that, I love all of the games, but it's definitely made for like a newer audience to bring them into that original story, and also to give us something new, and
yeah,
just have fun with the Pokemon games.
I'm
Yeah.
so for more Pokemon games that aren't putting a strain on the Game Freak team if they're good. We did recently see one that wasn't great, which we'll get to, I'm sure. But buddy, what we haven't really covered like your full progress. Like, how far have you gotten in this like playthrough of old games?
So I did Red, and then I immediately did Crystal. I was gonna do Silver because that's the original one I did, but I got a ROM of Crystal, and I absolutely loved it because I don't know if I ever actually played that one as a kid. Then I did. Next up would be Emerald, right? Emerald
Yeah,
is
the third.
Gen 3.
Yeah, third version of Gen 3.
Yeah, so that one is one of my. That's probably, I think, if I'm not putting nostalgia glasses on, probably the strongest generation and my favorite generation.
I think it's
Um,
the easiest to play as far as classics go. It's got good enough graphics that it's still pretty. It's got decent quality of life. There's an interesting story in it. Yeah.
yeah, and then of course for Gen 4, I played Platinum again, and Platinum is a really good game, even though Gen 4 might be my least favorite generation overall. It's just a hard map to get through. It's hard to play through, but if you're gonna play a version of it, I always suggest playing Platinum. That one I played. Those ones were all on ROMs because I started playing on the computer because I found it easier.
Yeah.
And then I went on to Gen 5 as Black and White. And I had played Black and White before, but I had never played Black 2 or White 2. And those were brand new games to me through this playthrough, which was amazing because I thought they were originally, I must have assumed that they were like either remakes or just like updated versions. They're completely new games.
Yeah, it was the first time they did that, where like it was a lot more than just like Emerald was to Ruby and Sapphire and so on.
Yeah, it's a legitimate sequel, and it's weird, and it's awesome, and
Yeah.
it's set in America, and there's a garbage Pokemon,
Yes.
and it's just dumb, and I love it. And then Gen 6 is X and Y, which is fun, but I think I played that one on ROM. And then I eventually got to my 3DS where I played what I think is the most like interesting game, which is the Sun and Moons and the Ultra Sun and Moons, because they're the first ones to like try something different with the trials and things like that. Ultra Sun and Moon is like one of the most perfect, I think, games that they made. And then I've played through the Let's Go games. I played through all the remakes. And then I've gotten to the ones that I'm on right now. I just finally finished Legends.
Okay.
That one I took my time with just because it's like it's more of an RPG game and more. It's different from what I'm used to, but I also love it because it's Pokemon. The only one I can't finish is the one we were talking about earlier. Brilliant Diamond and Shining Pearl. Those games are rough, and I've put more hours into the newest 2 generations than I think I did as a kid with any of the other ones because I love both Sword and Shield and Scarlet and Violet. It's just that remake there of Diamond and Pearl it's a real rough playthrough.
I mean,
How is it rough? Because I haven't played it, so I'm just curious. Like, what makes it an unenjoyable process? I suppose.
It's not bad if you isolate it away from every other Pokemon game available on Switch. If it's the
or
only
in
one that's
general.
available on Switch, yeah. It's a really fun game. If you grew up on those games, if that was your generation, I think it's probably a fun playthrough. But to me, the weird aspect of like the look just doesn't look updated enough, and that's not a complaint like, oh, I think everything should be in HD and look the greatest ever. I love the fact that Pokemon is still messy and very messy, but this one just looks cheap. It looks very like not of its time. It's also they take away a lot of like little aspects of the game that were fun. The biggest thing for me is if you like catching all the Pokemon, if you like having a diverse team, this is the game that has the least diverse team. Everyone has the same team build because unless you do any of the underground stuff and just stay there for hours and hours and hours and wasting your time, there's only a handful of Pokemon you can actually catch. There's not a lot to the story, especially when you come off of stories that we had prior and stories that we currently have. It's just very, I don't want to say boring because I love Pokemon and I will eventually play through it all, but I'm
by
just
comparison. I think it feels like by comparison, it's probably a little.
It's
if they would have just remade Platinum and left the other two games alone, I think they would have had themselves a very successful game.
yeah. It's just, I think, the weirdest game to do a one-to-one direct remake of, because they hardly do that nowadays, you know?
Yeah.
They like kind of update and like make it a little different, and then this one they're like, oh, it's just a one-to-one but like looks better. And yeah, they like, granted, it wasn't made by Game Freak. It was the first one to be handed off, and I'm a believer in like handing off to other companies, but that one, just poor choices, really.
They missed on some things, and the chibi characters I thought like were cute at first, but then it was very much like, oh, this is just kind of a different time, I think.
Yeah.
Well, buddy, have you revisited any Digimon games?
So I actually haven't played any of the new I think they're probably RPG games. I've been trying to read about them because I want to play another one. When I bought my old games, I did play the old PlayStation 1 ones, the ones where you like build your own Pokemon. I forget, or Digimon. I forget what they're called, but it like
Digimon World.
Yeah, I think those are the ones, like the first three.
Yeah.
That are really rough to play through. I got those in Monster Rancher because those ones were nostalgic for me.
Monster
Nice.
Rancher.
Yeah. But yeah, I did play those ones in my nostalgic read through all my old favorite games. But I haven't played any of the new ones where they're like solving mysteries and stuff. They look really
They're kind of fun. I played both of them because they're connected somewhat. Like it's two stories that are happening at the same time. So you play, like, both games are the same linear thing, but you're getting two different sides of it. Hacker's Memory and Cyber Sleuth. And they're fun, but they're very. I think it's like a very controlled environment for an RPG, meaning you don't actually have much choice.
Yeah.
It's the illusion of choice. It's that kind of thing where it's like, here's some options of stuff you can say. None of these will make any difference for what you're. It's a lot of that kind of stuff.
But you got the team.
That is where you do have control. Is training your team of Digimon. Like, and that's where it actually becomes fun. If you're a completist like I am, it's such a fun game to play because it is such a user-friendly way to go through their entire catalog and just evolve to different Digimon, so you can just get them all, basically. I think they're fun, but I think that they are still not trailing. They are in the dust of Pokemon, and probably will be for the foreseeable future as far as games to compare the two franchises. It does not hold a candle to like really anything that Pokemon has put out, with the exception of like the original Digimon World. I think that is still their strongest showing that they've had is that first Digimon World. They really haven't topped that since, unfortunately. That was a long time ago that they made that.
Yeah, and that one is the strongest of the three for
So
sure.
good.
Yeah.
It's
Yeah.
so good.
It's
Yeah.
almost perfect for like a PlayStation 1 game. It's
Oh, yeah.
just
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
not much more than what you need.
I really want to play Digimon World 3 again. I found how to get it on my iPad, and like I was like, oh, next time I go on a trip, that would be really good. Because Digimon World 1 is the peak. 2 is, okay, different. I feel like 3 is like really good if you want something to just like play for a long time, because it's so long, but without like too repetitive, because you go to different zones and stuff.
Yeah. I'd like to really play that one for the first time because I bought it and then I played it for like a couple months, and then I don't know, like when you have two brothers, sometimes games just go missing.
Yeah.
Like it's just one of those things. So I have no idea what happened to my copy of Digimon World 3. I enjoyed it for about a month, and then I'd have no idea what happened. But it was unique to the other two because it gave you a team of 3 rather than the 1, and it had a little more strategy involved that way. And it was just a cool story of being trapped in a computer, basically.
Yeah.
Like, it to me at the time, it felt like very original and fresh because I hadn't really seen anything like that. I'm sure there was a lot that it was drawing from of currently at the time, but what I had a thought there of yep, lost me. Doesn't matter. Take it away, fellas.
Well, I'm curious. Out of you've basically played through all the Pokemon recently. What's been your favorite?
Man, the recency bias for me, I really do love Scarlet and Violet. But if I'm gonna say all time, it's still Soul Silver.
Yeah, such a good one.
It's my favorite game as a child was Silver, and it's the perfect remake where it just kind of updates what's great about the first game. It's also the only one really, I mean, technically in this new one with the DLC, you can go to another region, but it's the only one where you get to do 2 regions, and it's really fun, and it's hard. For me, it's the most difficult Pokemon game, even though I've probably played it more than any of the other ones. So I would say that one for sure.
All the new ones are for babies nowadays.
Do you tend to have a go-to starter type that say for instance fire? Do you like gravitate towards a fire type?
I think I do gravitate towards actually fire, but all of my favorite starters are water. Like my 3 favorite starters, my favorite Pokemon of all time is Totodile. That little idiot is my favorite. He's
so friggin' cute.
He's just the best. And then behind him is Squirtle because of the cartoon and the Squirtle with the sunglasses. As a kid, I thought he was the coolest. And then of the newest games, I really like Inteleon of the last generation. In Generation 8, he was a James Bond lizard who like shot with his finger gun.
just finger blasting.
He's just so great. But I
learned about that Pokemon on this show.
It's
magical. A lot of the
magical.
show is like me, like kind of learning about Pokemon stuff. Because when we started the show, I had even less information about newer Pokemon. Because this was before I started playing Go, and now I'm a little more familiar with a lot of the newer Pokemon. But yeah, when Milk described that James Bond lizard to me, oh, that's so delightful. I loved learning that existed.
He's great to me, and he's like the animations that they've done for him when he does his like signature move is just so fun. So he became my favorite, but I think overall, I've always gone for the fire starter mostly. I can think of like of all the generations, probably picked the fire starter more often than anybody, just because I don't think I've ever picked a grass starter. No disrespect to any of my
Aw.
grass starters. I love some of them. I
Yeah.
think I think Bulbasaur is great. And Sprigatito from this generation is probably my favorite starter. So this is probably the first time I ever had a grass favorite starter. But yeah, it's always been fire or water for me.
People love that cat.
I do. I'm a big fan. I think it's great. I love that it's equally feminine in both, like, genders that it evolves up to. It's like still such a, I don't know, just this isn't a family podcast. I could say it. It's cunty.
Yeah.
It's a pretty cunty cat.
It's serving.
It really is.
It's a magician cat. It's very eccentric, and I love that cat.
Oh yeah, it's fantastic.
I haven't seen the new show too much, but I guess like there's a Masquerada or Meowscarada, it's its name.
Yeah, Meows.
And it's like fucking around with a Fuecoco, like making an apple disappear and everything.
I love all the starters this time.
Fuecoco is adorable. That's just the cutest starter that I've seen. Yes, I love Fuecoco so much.
Starter, yes.
Yeah. I kind of don't like what it ends up becoming, though. Like, if I can be totally honest, like, I mean, I think it looks cool, but like, it goes from being the sweetest little guy into like, oh my god, what is this? Like, it's such a hard left.
Skeleton crocodile from like cute little crocoboy. Yeah, I agree. I was disappointed in the final evolution, not because it doesn't look cool, but because it wasn't cute and adorable. Like the first.
Fair, yeah. I'll say for me, Skeletorage is one of the first time I wasn't disappointed by a final stage starter, like while I was playing, because a lot of times I'm like, I have mixed of feelings, and then I look back at them, I'm like, oh, actually they were cool. Like Inteleon, I really didn't like it, kind of for the same reason. I loved Crybaby Sobble, and I was like, let's get a Crybaby but strong like final form, and no, they made him cool, but now I like him. But Skeletorage, I love him. I love the cool crocodile.
I mean, it's terrifying.
I will say he does have probably of the new generation the best animation for his signature move where he gets the microphone and starts singing. That is probably the coolest animation, but he is very scary as far as like when you look at Fuecoco and how silly he is.
Yeah.
To turn into something so scary is different, I guess.
I mean, Skeletorage is actually scary looking. Like, not a lot of Pokemon, even ghost types, will like be scary, but he is. And Fuecoco looks like he fucking threw the Kraft cheese like singles on his tummy.
Yep.
So, Cory, your biggest like exposure to Pokemon is Go. So
Go has exposed.
Yes. So are you familiar with Skeletorage's like special animations?
No.
Okay.
This was me learning about it just now. The mention of the microphone, I'm like, oh my goodness, that sounds fantastic. No, because I've only read, just in the Dex description in the game. So I knew that there's like a vocal sort of element to it, but it doesn't come across when you're playing in Pokemon Go.
Yeah. The little bird on his head jumps off and becomes a microphone. Like its legs get really long and it's a microphone, and Skeletorage like lifts up on its high legs, which is also terrifying, and just fucking shouts into this little like phoenix microphone.
Oh, so he's not singing, he's screaming into a microphone.
I mean, have you heard a crocodile scream? It's a song in its own right.
That's amazing. Oh my gosh.
So, buddy, your favorite is the dude, the Totodile. Yes, that's also a crocodile starter,
but also a caveman.
and also one of only two he basically wears a diaper, but he's one of only two stages that have a diaper like that.
Yeah.
The Mandibuzz line. Um,
Oh, well, there's also the baby for Toxtricity.
oh, is he wearing a diaper too? Oh,
Yeah, he's
that's
got a little diaper. It's
yeah.
very unsettling.
I just always liked Totodile because he just seems so dumb. Like he just so silly. And then he actually kind of does the same thing that Fuecoca the Skeledirge does because um Totodile does get into a big boy.
Yeah. But
He
I feel like
Alligator's a big scary
the
guy.
transition is a lot more gradual. Like you get used to him a little more in the second form of like, okay, he's kind of a punk kid now. He's like,
Yeah.
kind of rough and tumble,
He's eight.
which I guess you kind of get with the whatever Fuecoco first evolves into. It's a little rougher. It kind of does jump straight to a rough thing, but yeah.
Yeah, Totodile was always. I don't think it, especially now in this game, I'm playing currently again with Scarlet and Violet, and he's available again, and I've gotten him. And the first thing I did was throw an Everstone on him and not allow him to evolve because I don't want that cute little dummy to ever grow up. Because he's great, he's perfect, and he's not great in game, but I don't care because I love playing with him and I love seeing his little animation. And the cool thing about the new game is they've textured the
Oh
Pokemon, so
yeah.
like they have scaly skin or they have fur, and it looks almost like really good, like it's getting there. And
Yeah.
just seeing him, in this from the little tiny sprite I used to see as a kid, I'm like, oh, we've both grown up.
So, speaking of sprites, Feraligatr is kind of notorious because at the angle and cropping of him in I think the original games or maybe a different one. I have it here. I'll pop it up. But
I
buddy,
think
how
it's
do you
Chris.
feel? How do you feel about Feraligatr's just big juicy ass?
He's got a dumper, dude. Yes, he's got a big ass, and I think it's the crystal one because I do remember, playing through it and going, "Oh, this is from the meme of for alligator with a huge ass."
Yeah.
But yes, I think it's hilarious. Some of the sprites, like some of the original sprites, are absolutely hideous. I think it's Golbat, the one that's just like a giant mouth with eyes and some wings out the side of it. Um, some
Yeah.
of them some of them were like hastily put together, and then to now see like their 3D models and what's come out of what we saw as kids, I was like, I'm blown away sometimes because I'm like, oh, that's not what I imagined that sprite would look like in real life, I guess. And then
Yeah.
um, yeah, that sprite specifically has launched a lot of horny memes online, I guess.
I've sent it to you, Corey, in Messenger if you want to see. I guess it's just his tail kind of at a weird angle.
Yes.
It's very good. I'll say Digimon, all of their stuff looks great timelessly. Like even the low poly stuff, like playing
Mhm.
Digimon World 1 looks good.
Oh yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. It doesn't look dated. Isn't that
No,
wild?
it
Like
just
it
looks
really doesn't look like,
stylized.
oh, this is such a PlayStation game. Like no, it just looks great.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I,
It
I'd,
definitely looks like a game that, like some of the Pokemon games where you can play it forever, is, it's very easy to catch on to too. They explain everything. It's a fun game.
yeah.
Yeah.
So I don't know, buddy. Do you think the Pokemon games have made enough progress as they've continuously released now that you kind of like binge them in a row?
I think as I've played all of them in the last 3 years, I would say no, they haven't progressed as far as maybe I would like them to, because it's very formulaic. This was the first game where I felt since Sun and Moon that they got to do anything different with this open world aspect.
Yeah.
And I remember when I first started playing it, it took me, I don't know, maybe 12 hours of gameplay before I ever touched a trial or a gym or any of the other storylines, because I was just exploring whatever it would let me explore, and
Yeah.
just doing stupid stuff. So this is the big leap that I've been waiting for. I am very excited to see what they could do, because every piece of the DLC of this game has made it that much more enjoyable, which for the most part doesn't happen with Pokemon extended
Yeah.
versions of the DLC. Like the DLC for the last generation was not that. It was just extended stuff you can do. This one is two separate, complete, different stories that make it worth it.
Everyone's been really excited that you can play as Pokemon and like run around. I've seen
Oh,
people
yeah.
are like, just like kids, they're making their own games. They're like, hey, let's race to this point and see who can get there first as like various Pokemon.
That's
Playing
fun.
You can play hide and go seek with your friends, because
Oh
you can
yeah.
all get on the same map, and there's so much places to hide, and you can all go looking
Oh,
for each other. It's a really fun game just to play with friends.
I have not played with friends much in Scarlet and Violet, and I actually don't have the DLC yet, so I need to get that soon. And buddy, I'll be hunting you down so we can hide and seek.
I
Yeah,
had no, I feel so out of the loop here. I had no idea that there was like an online component to that game. Like
Yep.
I haven't really kept up with it, so I didn't realize
Yeah.
like there was any kind of co-op sort of feature with that where you could play with other people. That's very appealing.
it's
Uh,
kind of like our old link trades when we were kids, but now it's basically you guys share your ID like you would on
Mhm.
Pokemon Go, and
Yeah.
then you go online and you just send somebody an invite, and then they can come over to your world. It's especially fun if you have a different version from somebody, so that you can get the Pokemon that are
Yeah.
exclusive to their version and stuff like that. And it's kind of, there's certain differences in each game, so it's very fun to just jump into it.
but yeah, like the cool thing is there's not a direct way you have to play when you visit each other's world, because from my understanding you can just completely fuck off. Like
Yeah,
Corey, you could come to my game and just like go to the other side of the map and do your own thing. We would just be existing in that world.
yeah.
That's pretty cool. And this is
Yeah.
on Switch, right?
Yeah, so
Okay. All right. All
maybe
right.
look at
There's
it.
something to think about.
i
Yeah.
I have Scarlet, just saying.
Okay.
uh
I have Scarlet, and then I just recently bought Violet because I wanted to start a new game, but Scarlet's the first time I've ever completed the decks in my life,
yeah.
and I don't want to delete that. So I had to rebuy the game because I didn't want to delete the game that I currently have, because I wanted to replay it. So
Yeah, I get that. Buddy, do you subscribe to Pokemon Home at all?
I do. I
Oh,
do.
okay. Yeah. Deep in the
I
sauce
love
we
my
are.
Yeah,
What
I
is
Yeah.
love my
Pokemon Home?
Corey, I've been too ashamed to tell you about this. Pokemon Home is a service that you pay $12 a year so you can store Pokemon off games.
Oh, wow, that's deep.
Yeah, so you can like it does have a lot of extra functionality for Pokemon Go to the games, I think, with how you can transport, but it's like with Home, I can just like get all my Pokemon from all my files in one spot. I can open it as an app on my phone and like trade with friends without like pulling out the Switch. So it's cool and has functionality. I don't use all of that necessarily, but yeah, to have a service just to hold Pokemon is
That is so extra.
yeah.
That's definitively extra.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I've been like sick for it for a while. I had the original for the GameCube version
A
of the
box.
original
Yeah.
version of Pokemon Home, where you can store them. It was like a farm or whatever.
Oh yeah, and then on the Wii they like made that better. That was cool. The
I
Yeah.
didn't
Wii.
know about this at all. So this help me understand as someone who is not familiar with
Yes.
this. Is the purpose of this like once you've reached the maximum that the game itself will allow you to keep, and then you have the surplus that you can like put over into this other area? Is that what that is? Because
I
like
think
what?
that was I think that was the original function they wanted us to use it
Yeah.
for. What we all used it for was when we had the perfect Pokemon, and we wanted to move it to the next game. We would, especially for me, because I've had the Game Boy version, I mean the GameCube version, the Wii version, and now the Switch version, which is Pokemon Home. I've been able to, there's like 3 or 4 Pokemon I've had since the early 2000s that I
Hmm.
have been able to safely transfer up through games into Pokemon Home.
That's
And
really cool. I didn't realize that that was also a component of this. So you can take a game like a Pokemon that you caught in green, and
yeah,
then like save it for a while, and then put that into a game that's on a completely different console.
Hmm.
yes, yeah,
Wild.
You can even
That is
take
wild to me.
You can even take Pickles, Mr. Pickles, and put
Yes.
him into Scarlet and Violet. Unfortunately, from Go to the games, it's a one-way street. You can't put anything back to Go. But
Interesting.
yeah, so
But that would be a thing that you could do with the other games. You can go back and forth with the
yeah,
other ones.
kind of,
Huh.
yeah. There are limitations sometimes because of like moves and different things, but there is some different compatibility. But I mean, mostly like I said, it's so you can hold on to someone special and move them forward. Whether that's not like putting them into your newest game or just having them
Mhm.
safe without having to go back to the older games. So
yeah.
That's really neat.
yeah,
And still so extra.
so extra.
It's the
That is
most.
a level of dedication that I both admire and kind of fear.
Because you know you're on the cuff.
I I honestly have a Feraligatr from my first version of Soul Silver, like from my very first version. I think that's the oldest Pokemon I probably have is my Feraligatr, which I can now technically probably play in the new game.
Yeah,
I don't know if his moveset's legal or not, but
it'll
I think I
adjust. Yeah.
can. Yeah, I can play him in the new game, and that's crazy to me because I've had that thing since I was a boy, basically. So
Right, like that's how they make you get attached to these. Like, they until now really put zero effort into making each unique or special. It's just the fact that you caught it and gave it a
yeah,
name and that you could hold on to it. Like the players make all the Pokemon special, which is kind of wild because they just didn't do anything for it. It wasn't until like newer games where you could play with them that you like get unique memories, and then now you can like see a lot more. You can see their height differences, and I'm really hoping like that just goes further. I'd love to see even just like some variations of like, oh, that one has bigger tusks or stuff like that. Like if
Yeah.
they, oof, the
I, I
dream.
I love variations. I also am like, even though there's obviously lots of complaints about people who don't like the Galarian Pokemon who
Oh
are
yeah,
versions of a Cantonian Pokemon, like those kind. I love that. I love
Me too. Me too. I think it's fantastic.
it is, and then in this new one, they kind of explore. I forget what they call it, but it's different. It's like instead of
oh
Diglett being Canton or Galarian Diglett, it's Wiglet. It's a completely different
yeah.
um branch of an evolution, but it's still a Diglett.
It
Um,
looks like a Diglett, but that's a
yeah,
coincidence.
yeah,
Yeah, it's the equivalent to what in real life is. I had the word and then I've lost it. Not covert, but essentially, ecological
convergent.
niches get
Yeah,
filled.
convergence. Isn't that the word? I
Something
feel like
like
we've talked
that.
about it on this show before.
Yes, but
Of
yeah,
how like species will kind of evolve slightly together, kind of
Yeah,
like it's
yeah, to look
where they kind of
similar.
meet
Yeah.
somewhere. Yeah, yeah.
They played it too safe. They only did two, unless there's some in the DLC. I don't think there are though. Um,
no, it's just the two. Yeah,
yeah, and they're so wacky. They picked the
they're
wiggliest of Pokemon to do it.
they're dumb and they're
Yeah,
perfect.
yeah, Wiglet and Diglett, and then Toadcool Toad's
Old school.
Toadscruel. They turned uh, a squid octopus into a mushroom.
Yeah. And
So
That makes sense.
yeah,
genius.
yeah, so good. But speaking of
And whatever Doug
Doug Trio,
trio is into water worms.
yeah, that which are too red. They kind of look like unmentionables. Big red
They are.
tubes.
They are weird. I love them.
I could stylize my hat. I'm realizing if I just get like a third one. But we're at the end of the show. We're to the everyone's favorite segment. Speaking of banger designs, Buddy, let's start with you. What's a Digimon that you really like?
It's really hard because there's two of them that I absolutely love.
Oh, okay.
But my all-time favorite, because his storyline, just the way it goes, is always been Impmon.
Impmon?
Yeah, Impmon.
Yeah.
He is. I love him. His storyline when he finally gets to Digi-Evolve, like everything about him. He starts as a bad guy. He's a little jerk. Everything about him, I love him. He is my favorite.
Yeah.
And his design's perfect too.
Yeah.
I feel like they did such a original take of the anti-hero kind of trope with him, just because he starts off not like just a villain, but just kind of a little bitch, little bitch villain. And it just felt so different and better, I think. And he kept the good like anti-hero of still kind of just like an ass in a way.
His accent was perfect.
Yeah.
Like, it's just, and then his Digi-Evolution is wonderful.
Yeah, he got a motorcycle. Yeah.
Yeah.
I haven't seen a Pokemon with a motorcycle yet, so.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. We know it's happening.
There is one that is a motorcycle in this new game.
Yeah. The like poison steel car engine thing.
Oh, well, there's that, but there's also like the lizard.
Oh, right. Those are motorcycles. Yeah. The legendaries. Right.
Those two, but also Cyclizar.
And Cyclizar. Yeah. Can't forget about the common one.
I love that Milk keeps giving examples, and you're like, no, but there's another one.
Yeah.
I like that guy. He's a lizard with a motorcycle.
I feel like Cyclizar really got trumped out because the story didn't even acknowledge how the legendaries are like paradox forms of him.
Yeah, exactly.
Which, like, they could have been like, oh, they're like Cyclizar. But instead they're like, Cyclizar is a big part of our culture and we'll never mention it again.
Everyone else rides them, but you can't.
Yeah, you can't.
Something cooler.
Yeah. You have to have your nice tricked out lizard.
Yeah, exactly. But Cyclizar rules. But yeah, Impmon's my favorite. The other one that it was hard for me not to say is Leomon, because he's just the coolest design.
Oh, yeah.
Better.
Vanilla
He's
Leomon?
the daddiest of all Digimon.
He's the daddiest.
By far.
I mean, you got the same hair even.
Oh, he's got the Fist of the Beast King.
Yeah.
He is very much daddy in the Digimon world.
Well, to speed through this really quick, do either of you have a favorite Leomon variation?
Oh, well, yeah, easy. I'm blanking on the name of it, but he's the one where he has a rose.
Bancho Leomon.
What was that?
Bancho Leomon?
Is it Bancho? Is that what it is?
He's got the black coat.
I think he's got a black coat. I know he's got. I know he has he's like a romantic. I think he has like a rose in his mouth or something.
I think it's Bancho. Bancho.
I know I got one in Cyber Sleuth. That's the only time I came across it. I never saw it in the show or anything, but I don't remember what the actual name of it, but it might have just been that one. For some reason
Maybe.
I thought it was something else, like something else Leomon, but
Bancho Leomon does have something in his mouth, but maybe there's two, maybe he has an oral fixation.
Yes, could be.
I've always loved I think it's Strap Leomon or Gear Leomon. He's got the rotating cuffs and everything.
Sick.
But okay, well, I'm going to throw my Digimon out there. It's a weird one. It's Colamon. It's just like a fish with armor. I've always loved it because he was kind of mysterious to find in Digimon World 1, but I think he's one of those Digimon that really works with the old torn up kind of gnarly style. And even now they can't undo that. Like, he just has to be gnarly. So
Yeah.
I'm glad to get his little ugly silhouette here somewhere on our overlay as a sticker. But Cory, would you like to tell us a Pokemon you like, or would you like to describe one and have us potentially guess?
Let me do a description, and
Okay.
I'm not going to do a Pokemon because you
Oh.
both did Digimon, and I don't want to be left out.
Okay.
So I'm going to do a Digimon. This is one of my very favorite Digimon. I don't think I've used it on the show before. Pretty sure I haven't.
Oh.
This Digimon, he's a little round guy, but
That's a lot.
he's got some pointy teeth. He's got plenty of metal on him. He also has a big old gun and some claws.
Okay, so
What do you think that is?
that's roughly 300 Digimon.
I think Buddy has it though. Buddy looks like he has it.
I feel like it's the is it the polar bear one from the second team?
Nope.
Oh.
No, okay.
I know who Buddy's talking about though.
Yeah.
Does it have legs? Really quick.
It does have legs. It has legs and it has arms. It has a mouth. It has eyes. It is silver and red. Trying to give other
Rise
descriptions here.
Greymon?
Nope. Think very short. This is a very short Digimon. One of the shortest you'll ever find.
Short and has a gun.
He's got a gun that is part of him, as is pretty standard with Digimon guns.
Yeah. Why hold something when it can be just a part of you?
The small circular muscular guy.
Here's the very last hint that I will give, and then if we don't have it from there, I will reveal. Prominently featured in a cinematic sequence that in one of the games. I'll just leave it at that. In a cinematic sequence in one of the games.
I got it, buddy. You have seen this Digimon recently. Do you know it?
I have not.
It's
All
Metal.
right, I don't.
It's Metal Mamemon.
Yep.
Oh,
Yeah.
I asked.
I always pronounce it Mamemon.
Mamemon, probably.
Yeah.
I asked the legs because I was thinking of a Digimon that looks like Mamemon, the one with the horns, but it's not a Mamemon. Oh man, that's a good Digimon, and
It's one of my favorite Digimon mostly because of that opening scene in Digimon World, because he's the one that fights Metal Greymon in the opening like long kind of intro movie thing. And when I saw that as a kid, it blew my mind. Like, I love that Digimon so much. It's like he's got the blaster on his arm, and it just looks so cool, but also cute. Like, it rode that line between the two, I think, better than most Digimon do, frankly, like being cool and cute. And watching my brother evolve to a Metal Mamemon in the game was so cool. Like, getting to see, like, I never got like really that far with it, but oh yeah, such a, and it's a really powerful Digimon too, if I recall, because I think it's an ultimate level one. So it does kick ass as well. Well, that's our show, folks. We hope you enjoyed it. We're doing this every third Thursday of the month right now, correct? Is that I think it's
third Thursday.
Thursday. Yeah. So tell your friends. Tune in. We had some people in the chat this time around. We love it. We love that. We want that cooperation, so we know how to make this show better for you.
Yeah.
So we hope you tune in for another one, and that you keep on. Wait, no, I want to let Buddy plug anything first. As a guest host, he has the right to plug something.
Yeah, Buddy.
What do you got happening, buddy?
Yes, where you're finding this show on Stab, you can also find me every second Friday of the month, doing the Dr. Buddy Love show. It's a fun time. Come out. It's 9 p.m. every second Friday. It's my favorite thing to do every month, so come see me.
I saw the last one. Fantastic.
It was fun.
Okay, Cory, you had a tagline, I guess?
I did.
Okay.
I think I've kind of used it before, but you know what? I like it, so I'm going to use it again. We hope you enjoyed the show. Have a great night, and keep on poking in the digital world.